Hey guys, welcome back to the ultimate Spright guide here on my channel. If you did not saw it, I posted a video. The last video I posted was a few runic Spright games I showed you were some good games, and so I decided to make a guide to play the Spright deck, as it's one of the strongest decks actually in the current meta in Master Duel, and it's really fun, it's really complex. It's not a super easy deck, but me personally I like the complex decks, and if you like it too, and if you're asking yourself how can I play this deck, maybe you have the cards, maybe you don't know the combos, I will show you that today. It's important to know that I will show you that on the basis of runic Spright. So I'm playing the runic Spright variant. There also is the basic Spright variant and the live twin Spright variant, as well as the tri-brigade Spright variant, which I don't want to go over every combo for every variant, but I will show you like the basic combos for the Spright engine and then show you a bit of the runic package as well. So let's go over the deck list. First, this is the same deck list that I mentioned in the last video, so if you saw that, then you already know the deck list, and as I said, I will go into what you can do with every card a bit later. So at first we have triple max C. I think this is a card you always play in every deck in Master Duel because it's such a good card. Then we have the wind-up kitten. This is more a special thing for the runic variant. It's for spinning a card back into the extra deck or the deck of your opponent to break the board. This Hyperia is also more for the runic variant to draw cards. This is also to draw cards, and then we get to like the core cards of the Spright archetype, which is blue, jet, red and carrot. So what are they doing? Spright blue is a level 2 effect monster, which if you control another level or rank 2 monster, so you could control the Hyperia, which is level 2, but you could also control like the gigantic Spright, which is rank 2. But if you do it, you can special summon this from hand and then activate his effect. So he's basically the searcher for the Spright archetype. So he can search every other Spright name: jet, red, carrot or Pixies. But Pixies is not a card that you are playing commonly in Spright. It's like the worst of them all. But we will look at that in a moment. So we have Spright Blue, he's the searcher. And you have to notice this is hard once per turn, so when you used it or when it got negated, you cannot use it again. But Spright Blue, this is the one you basically play 3 of in every list. Then we have Spright Jet. Spright Jet is the searcher for the spell cards or the trap cards that come in the future, because in the future we will get another really good trap card for the Spright archetype, but it's not yet there. So what Jet does is, same effect as blue, if you control a level 2 or rank 2 monster, you can special summon it from hand and then it searches you your other Spright spells. So let's quickly look at this, because in this list I have some Spright spells, but there are also a few more. We have Smashers, which allows you to banish one of your Spright cards from your hand or graveyard and then use mainly this effect here at the bottom. You can banish one level, rank or link 2 monster you control and one card your opponent controls. So that could be your Spright Blue, your Spright Jet, your Red, your Carrot, maybe your Pixies, which we will look at, but it could also be your Elf or your gigantic Spright. So everything works with this card, and what is awesome about this card is that this is non-targeted banishment, which means that there are some cards like Magnite Crusader Avamax here, which says when this link summoned card is on the field, your opponent cannot target this card with card effects. So if this card would say, right down here, banish one level rank 2 monster you control and target one card your opponent controls, then this could not be used on Avamax, for example. But this is non-targeting. This is mostly the strongest form of removal, and this can, for example, remove an Avamax. It can banish everything from field. A super strong card which you can search with Spright Jet. But what you can also search with Spright Jet, and that's pretty common, is the Spright Starter. The Spright Starter, as the name says, is a quick quick play spell that starts all your other combos, because you can special summon one Spright monster from your deck to your field, but you lose life points in the amount of the attack. So you could like use the Spright starter to get your Spright blue, then to get your Spright jet, and then it can get you your Spright smashers, for example. But we will look at some hands, we will look at some scenarios, I will show you the combos in game. So it's all about knowing or going over the cards, and then I will show you the combos in game. So this is Spright Jet. As I said, he can search for like smashers, for starter, or he could search for the third spell we have right now, Gamma Burst. It's not that commonly played because it's weaker than the other two, and it's especially weak in the runic variant, because in the runic variant you always skipping your battle phase, and this is more battle centric. So all level rank link 2 monsters you currently control get 1400 attack and defense, and you can also, like for the rest of the turn, and you can also banish this to give one level rank or link to monster 1400 attack. So this is pretty awesome if you play like the Spright normal variant, which can attack, unlike the runic variant. Then maybe you have a board full of sprites, 4 sprites, and they all get 1400 attack. So they normally don't have a lot of attack. You can see here 1200, 13, 11, but if you give them 1400 and each of them, then you can one turn kill most of the opponents if they don't have something on the board. So that is a good card, but not especially in the Spright variant. So these are the spell cards, and then we have the monster I mentioned is Spright Pixies. It has the same conditions like every other normal basic Spright card. If you control a level rank 2 monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. And you can always do it only once per turn. Like you can only once per turn special summon this. That's the important thing. And the really important thing that is something you have to learn from the beginning. This effect, like the blue effect to search another Spright card, it will only happen if it was special summoned this way. So you cannot normal summon Spright blue, then he will not activate his effect. So we have Pixies then, and Pixies can during damage calculation, if another level rank or link 2 monster battles, you can quick effect this card from your hand or field to the graveyard, and that monster that battles gains attack and defense equal to the opponent's monster. So this is a safe way to win a battle, but that's by far the worst, the weakest Spright card, so you will not see it in very much lists. Then we have the 2 negate cards, Red and Carrot. So what Red does, this is like every other Spright card, we know this already. If you have Red on the field, you can tribute another rank or link to monster or level 2 monster to negate a monster effect. So let's say your opponent activates Ash Blossom, and then you can use your Red. Maybe you have also a Jet on the field, you can tribute your Jet, and then the Ash Blossom will negate it. One important thing to note is that when you tributing a link 2 or a rank 2 monster, so let's say Spright Elf or Spright Gigantic, then you can also destroy the card, which can be very important. Let's say the opponent plays a Nibiru and you negate the Nibiru. So maybe you are like, okay, I want the Nibiru also destroyed. Then you can tribute your Spright Elf or maybe your Spright Gigantic or some other link or rank 2 monster, and then you can also destroy the card. And this can be very important. Spright Carrot is like the opposite of Spright Red. Spright Carrot is the negate for trap and spell cards. So this negates monster effects, this negates spell and trap cards. And it has the same effect if you tribute a rank or link to monster, then you can also destroy the card. So that could be important in case of maybe a Runic Fountain. Your opponent plays Runic Fountain, you activate Spright Carrot, and there is nothing you can negate here because you just played it, but you can chain it here, and then you can like tribute the Spright Elf or the Spright Gigantic and can destroy this card. You can choose if you want to destroy it, but you don't have to. It's a can effect. So these are the basic Spright cards and the basic Spright spells. So let's look over, and as I mentioned, we will get another support wave for Spright cards in the future, but let's look at the extra deck monsters, which are very important for the archetype. We have the Gigantic Spright, which is, I mean, this says Spright Starter, but actually this is the real Spright Starter. So you make it by using 2 level 2 monsters. So that's important to know, because you could also maybe use the Maxi or the Hyperia. You don't need to use 2 Spright monsters. You can do it with any level 2 monsters. It's at 1600 attack and defense. This is not so important, but good to know. And genau. You can also treat, and that's important, Link 2 monsters as a level 2 monster. So you can also make it with an Hyperia and a Spright Elf, which is a Link 2 monster. You can also make it with these cards. What's important to know is that when you make the gigantic Spright with a Fusion, Synchro, XYZ or Link monster, its attack becomes doubled. So let's say you do make it with the Spright Elf and let's say the Spright Blue. Then this card, the Spright Gigantic, will not have 1600, but it will have 3200. So that's important to know. And what you can do then is, of course, this thing has 2 materials, because you make it with 2 monsters, 2 level 2 monsters. And then once per turn, you can detach 1 monster from the Gigantic Spright, and then you can summon 1 level 2 monster from your deck. And that's really important, because I will show you that in the combos, but this is a good starting point for the Spright combo. Let's say you have only the Hyperia and maybe a Maxi. I mean, that's crazy, you don't have Maxi on board, but let's say it is that way. Then you can go into the Gigantic Spright, and then you can detach to make a blue, and blue can then search for Jet, which can then search for red or carrot, but I will show you that in the combo guide. So this is a starter, and you can often make it to start your whole combo. It's super important. And the another important thing to notice is that once you summon this, either player can only special summon monsters level, rank or link 2 for the rest of your turn. The important thing is that this is also a thing for your opponent. So what this is normally negating is the enemy's Nibiru. So maybe you play 5 Spright cards and the enemy wants to Nibiru you, but he can't because you played Spright Gigantic, and he is now locked into level, rank or link 2 monsters. And now he cannot use his Nibiru. That's super important to know. But it's also important to know because it also limits you. So if you want to make, let's say, an Avamax or some other extra deck monster which is not level, link or rank 2, you can't in your turn. That is why you often use IP Masquerena to make it on your opponent's turn, but that's another thing. So another important thing that I forgot to mention is that Spright Starter also locks you into level, rank and link 2 monsters. But normally for the Spright archetype and the supporting cards, that's not a problem, because the decks are made the way that they can work with it. So that's important to know. The other extra monster card is Spright Elf, which you can make by using 2 monsters, including a level, rank or link 2 monster. So that is awesome, because you could, for example, like I did in the game in the last video, if you don't have already seen it, go check it out to see how strong Spright is. You could steal with Triple Tactics Talents, of course, Triple Tactics Talents, could steal 1 monster of your opponent and then use that stolen monster and 1 of your level 2 monsters to make Spright Elf. And Spright Elf is a really awesome card. It's like my favorite card in the archetype, because it only has 1400 attack, but it's not good for its attack value. It has the effect that during either player's main phase, this is a quick effect, which means you can use it on your opponent's turn. You can choose 1 level 2 monster in your grave, and you can summon it to your field. You can special summon to your field. So you can make the Spright Elf, and you will see that in the games I show you. You can make the Spright Elf, and then you can survive or revive something on your turn, and you can revive something on the opponent's turn. So it's like a monster reborn for free on the card, and you can also do it on your opponent's turn. And then again, of course, if this lives, you can do it again on your turn, which is crazy. You can also revive IP Masquerena with it, and that is crazy because IP Masquerena is a link 2 monster, so it's basically like you monster reborn 2 monsters worth of value. So yeah, but the other important thing is, the other cool thing with Spright Elf is that everything that this card points to, so you can see the arrows here, it has an arrow to the left and an arrow to the right. So maybe it's in your extra monster zone, and everything this card points to, you can the enemy cannot target it with card effects. So let's say you have the elf, and then you have to the right side a Spright blue and to the left side a Spright jet. Then your opponent cannot like target and destroy the jet or the blue, but your opponent has to target the elf first, which is a super good bonus effect for the Spright elf. So after looking at all these Spright cards, I will now show you some hands and I explain you what the combos are. And as I said, the combos we will look at for the runic Spright variant, but if you know the basic combos for the Spright variant, you will also use the same combo line in the Tri-Brigade deck, in the Life Twin deck and in the pure Spright deck. So if you know the basic combo line, you can use it in every deck. So let's look at the basic combo, and the basic combo starts with either starter or Spright blue. So we have starter in the hand, so we will activate it, and this allows us to search a Spright monster. We will now search for Spright blue and summon it onto the field. The important thing to know is that you always have to keep in mind where you summon your stuff, because in the end, on the end board, you will have a Spright elf here or here, and the Spright elf arrows will protect either this field or this field, but not these fields. So monsters I will not keep on the end board. I usually try to summon in this column, and like something like Spright red or carrot, which I want to have on the end board, I will summon here so the Spright elf can protect it, but I will show you that. So we started with starter, but it could also be that you have Spright blue in your hand. So let's imagine we had Spright blue in our hand, not the Spright starter. Then I would have played the Iperia, which is a level 2 monster, and that would have allowed me to special summon Spright blue and activate his effect. Okay, so you always need a level rank 2 monster to activate Spright blue's effect or Spright jet's effect, but in this case we had a starter. So okay, we have Spright blue now and we're activating his effect. And let's imagine that we do not have Spright jet in the hand, because in this case we have it in the hand, and normally you would search Spright jet with Spright blue, so we get the Spright jet, and just imagine it is not in our hand. In this specific hand, we then would have used the blue to search for the red or the carrot, because we already had Spright jet. But let's imagine we don't. So we have our Spright jet, which we can also special summon, because this is a link, a level 2 monster. So we special summon it. I also will special summon it here, because I don't want to keep it on the field. Activate his effect, and he will search us one of the Spright spells. You can now get starter or smashers. In our case we will get smashers, but normally you would get starter. The thing, or the reason why we don't get starter here is because we already used it. We already used it to search for Spright blue, so we cannot use it again this turn. You could also get this and then put it here on the field and use it on your opponent's turn. But if you already used the starter, then you can grab your smashers, which we will do here. So let's imagine you had the Spright blue in the start hand, and this is a Spright starter. So what we could now do, if it were a Spright starter, we could activate it to search for red or for our carrot, which is our monster negate and our spell and trap negate. But we don't have it, so let's look what other plays we can make here. So what we have are two level 2 monsters that allows us to go into Spright gigantic. So we will make a Spright gigantic, because these two have no further effect, no further use for us. We will make the gigantic Spright, and what in the beginning is often confusing is that this is not an end boss monster, and this is not the big monster of the Spright board that you want to keep around. It's also important, it's just important for its effect, because it can detach one of its materials. Let's get the blue, and in many cases you will have like a Spright card here and a non-Spright card. It's always better to get the Spright card to the graveyard, because you can reuse it with the Spright elf. You also want to get the card to the graveyard that you want to reuse later. So we get Spright blue to the graveyard, and now we can special summon a level 2 monster from our deck. So whatever monster you are special summoning now, that depends on which variant you play. So maybe you play the runic variant, maybe you'll play the Life Twin variant or the pure variant, that depends. So if I want to break the board, I would summon the Wind Up Kitten. If I want to draw a card, I would summon Iperia. Let's, for our purposes, decide for either the red or the carrot, which this is our monster negate, this is our trap and spell card negate. And this really depends. Let's say the opponent started and he plays Labyrinth or Eldlich, then he will set a back row here of spells and traps, and then obviously it makes more sense to go into carrot. I would suggest, if you don't know what the opponent is playing, you can better go into the red. And now I will place it into one of these 3 zones. Obviously I cannot place it here, but one of these 2 zones, because these are the zones that will later get protected by Spright Elf. So let's put it here. Another cool thing is, and you could do this from the start, let's say you have Spright Red in your hand. I could play then Hyperia normal summon, which would allow me to special summon Spright Red. I could do that, and then I had Spright Red and Hyperia. And now I'm safe from Ash Blossom, from Effect Veiler, from every hand trap, even from Nibiru, because I can negate a monster effect by tributing the Hyperia which I have on the field. So 2 cards, one of them is Spright Red, can like save you from every hand trap that your opponent can use on your first turn against you. So this is our board now, and it's not perfect, so we will use our normal summon. In this case I will use the Hyperia, normal summon, I draw a card, and the next step you will normally go into is making the Spright Elf. So let's do that. We are making Spright Elf, and we don't want to use Spright Red for that, because Spright Red is our negate. You can link away the gigantic sprite, because after it's activated its effect, it's not important anymore. So we now have Spright Elf, which protects Spright Red in this zone, and now we can activate the effect of Spright Elf, and we can get a monster back to our field. Let's take Spright Blue. And the problem we are facing here is that we did not have a very full hand. So what we are ending on basically here is the Spright Elf, which protects these 2 cards and can revive another card in the opponent's main turn, which we'll look at in a moment. And we have the negate, and you have the Spright Blue, because to negate something with red you need to tribute a level 2 monster, which is our Spright Blue. In an optimal world, you would now want to go into IP Masquerena, and you could go into IP Masquerena, but you have to summon to tribute these 2 monsters for it. So we will keep it this way. I would say this is a weaker end board, but that is the basic combo. The basic combo consists of you going into Spright Blue optimally with Spright Starter, or maybe you have it already. Then go into Jet. Jet searches for Smashers or Starter. And then if you have the starter, you can also go for red or for carrot, and you can also summon red or carrot from your gigantic sprite. So this is a weaker end board because we didn't have a great hand, but also because we searched for Spright Jet for showcase, but we also had it. I will show you another hand just in a moment, but let's first pass over to our opponent so I can show you the effect of Spright Elf and why it's such a strong card. So our opponent plays in his main phase a monster, and now you see I have the possibility to react with Spright Elf, which I will do now. So I can revive now 1 level 2 monster out of my grave. Don't pick the gigantic. I could pick the Hyperia here to draw a card, but let's pick the Spright Jet. So Spright Jet will be special summoned to my field, and now, and that's the cool thing, I can activate his effect. Because this round I have not activated his effect already. And now I can go search for starter. So we let them play, and they go for, what is this, Angmar the Fiendish. Yeah, let him do his thing, whatever. He goes into battle phase and he battles over our Spright Elf. Let him battle over it. So what I wanted to show is that you can revive something in your opponent's turn with the Spright Elf. And what you can do now, just to show you a bit of a follow-up, you can, because you have 2 monsters already, and you can also like normal summon a monster again, optimally not maxi, you can now go again into Gigantic Spright, like we did in the last round. Go into Gigantic, and the Gigantic could allow you again to go into Spright Blue. So let's just show that. I will pitch Spright Blue, and now I can summon Spright Blue, which will activate. And now I could search another Jet, but I only have carrot left, so I search for carrot, and now I have carrot, so I can special summon this, can special summon this. Now you can see that I have a lot of material to make link plays, and also to show you Spright Smashers. You remember this is the banish card. You need to banish one from your graveyard. You optimally always want to banish the starter, because the other Spright cards you can revive with Elf, especially Red and Carrot, which are your negates. So let's banish this. Then I need to banish one of my cards. Do not banish Carrot. You can banish everything else. I banish the Jet and one of my opponent's cards. And of course, what you can do now, you can once again go into Spright Elf, because you have another one. Use these. Put it here, so both arrows point down here and protect these guys, and you can activate it. And now I could go into the red to have a monster negate. I can go into Hyperia to draw a card. There are so many possibilities. The Spright Runic variant especially wins through card advantage. This is the good thing about the Spright engine, because it always allows you to make more plays, to get more things on the board where you can make more link plays with and get an advantage. That is the thing. But let's look at another hand and let's look at another combo line. But as I said, this is the basic combo line you will always go for. But let's see another hand and I will show you how I would play the next hand we see. So guys, let's look at another hand. In this hand we do not have a Spright Blue or a Spright starter. So what are you doing now? We have a Spright Jet, because obviously if we did not have a Jet here we would not have a single Spright name, but then we could also go into the Spright line, but let's use the Jet. So to summon the Jet we need a level 2 monster, which is in this case our Hyperia, and as I said, every other variant like the Livestream variant or the Pure variant or the Tri-Brigade variant will also have level 2 monsters which you can use for this. And now our Jet is active, so we summon the Jet and activate his effect to search for our Spright starter. So we want more cards, more Spright cards, so we go for the starter. We activate the starter and we summon our Spright Blue, which now searches another Spright card. And once again we can now go for the Carrot or the Red. Let's go for the Red. We can now summon the Red, but notice that we could also just have made out of these two a gigantic Spright. Like we will do it now. We don't need to do it now, but what we could have also done is you could have also just used the Jet to search for the Spright Smashers, the banish card, and then use the gigantic Spright to get Spright Blue. So as you can see, there are multiple lines to get our basic Spright line going. So I will now summon the Carrot. You could summon anything else, and I now go into Spright Elf. So this time I have to use the gigantic Spright because I want to keep the both negates on board. Now let's make it this way. And of course this was again not completely correct, because I play the Runic variant and I could have used this to make an Hugin to have another material for my plays, but we want to look at the Spright engine and I will show you something more in the next game. So yeah, we can survive something. Remember, this is more for making IP Masquerina, which you would need to tribute one of your negates for, but this is also for fodder for these two guys, because every one of these needs a tribute and this is the thing we want to tribute. So as you can see, we are once again in our end board, and let's just for fun make here the Masquerina. So let's use the Carrot because I find the red mostly more important. Let's make the Masquerina, and one thing that you could do on your opponent's turn, just to show you that, I will pass over to him, and remember it's only the play we want to look at. I will do whatever. Okay, so let's make the play. It doesn't make any sense here because he Darkhold us, but what you can do now, because we have made IP Masquerina, you can activate it, and then you can use, let's do it, resolves backwards. You can use your Elf and your Masquerina to go into Nightmare Unicorn, which of course we will lose now to the Darkhold, or will we, because we made it with IP Masquerina? I think we will. Let's just play the, oh, we won't, okay. Because of IP Masquerina, because this was our material, we won't lose the card. And what you can do now is activate its effect. Then you can discard a card from hand, and you can spin one card on the field back into the deck. Oh, we need to use the Unicorn now, but optimally you would use an opponent's card to spin that back. But yeah, you saw this is another starting hand, but we ended on nearly the same board. But let's look at another example and let's see how we can play this out. So the last situation I want to go over is the situation in which you do not have a sprite card in your hand. So let's imagine for this situation that here is not a sprite blue, we will not use this sprite blue. And every other deck variant can also do this, has also a line to do it, but I will show you the specific line with the runic variant. So we don't have a sprite here, so what are we doing now? How are we going to get into our sprite line? We start with our normal summon. In this case, it's the Iperia. As I said, the Life Twin variant has another Life Twin which can special summon another Life Twin from the deck, so then you have 2 cards. But for our purposes we use one of the runic cards to summon Hugin, which is a level 2 fusion monster. Here it goes. There it is, beautiful. And now we have 2 level 2 monsters. And as I said, every other variant can do this also. We did not use a single sprite card, and now we go into Gigantic Sprite because we can make it. And we go into Gigantic Sprite, let's put it here for our purposes, doesn't really matter right now, but always remember the link arrows from Elf. Then we can like detach one. Let's detach the Iperia because we can survive this later. And now we have access to the whole sprite line. Of course, as always, we start with blue because blue gets us into Jet, which we get now. I mean, we already had it, but yeah, let's ignore that. We go into Jet, and Jet now, because we did not use it this turn, can get us into Starter. And Starter then, let's wait, will get us one of the negates. In this case, let's pick red. And you can see we didn't have a single sprite card, but with 2 level 2 monsters we could make Gigantic and go into the complete sprite line. And of course now we can go into the Elf. Let's use this and this for that. And then whoops, Elf goes here to protect the red. And we activate the Elf effect to resummon whatever, doesn't matter. And yeah, now we can, for example, this board is good for that. We could go into IP Masquerina here. Other sprite variants might go into other link monsters, but the sprite core combo is always the same. So in every variant you do not need to have a sprite card to start your engine. I think the most vulnerable variant is the Tri-Brigade variant, but the other variants, they all have plays that allow you to just go into your Gigantic Sprite, then into blue, then into Jet, into Starter, into red or carrot, and then into Elf. Or if you already used your Starter, you can always search your Sprite Smashers with your Sprite Jet. So that's it for the basic combos for the Sprite deck. I also explained to you what the cards do, and this is all you have to know to start playing the Spright deck. And if you want to see more complex plays and plays that are like adapted to what the opponent does, then I have linked up here in the right corner the last video I uploaded on this channel, where I put some really cool and complex Spright games and situations which I had to resolve. Especially the last match I show is a really complicated match, or as complicated as Spright can get, and there you can see how you can use the basic Spright combo in a real game and what you have to be aware of to solve an enemy's board. So I hope you liked it, I hope you learned something. Please subscribe and hit the notification, and if you have any suggestions, any comments, please write them in the comments. So happy that you watched the video maybe until the end, and we will see us in the next one.